Do you need me to tell you how fast time has gone? Do I need to say anything about that? You might could tell based on the first chapel message I brought this semester, as well as some of the comments I made in the fall. This has been a year, an academic year for me of some introspection, of unusual awareness of time and the passage of time. It was really driven home to me this semester because a week from now, our oldest son is going to get married, and I was requested to go back through the pictures that I had over the span of his lifetime and select some from each year between birth and 19 years old, and that took some time. I don't know, hundreds, but I would suspect probably thousands of pictures I went through over a series of months. And I don't know about you, but when you do that kind of an exercise, it definitely drives home the passage of time. It was just yesterday I was holding him as a baby. It was just yesterday that he was 5 years old, and I had just arrived on the campus, brand new as a president, and he was jumping off rocks. It was just yesterday. Now he's just finished an application to be a seminary student with us, just like that. And I'm looking at pictures of my dad holding him at my age now. And he's been gone from us for 4 years already. He's like, there's a mystery to time, isn't there? In the moment, it just feels like it's going to take forever. You get your syllabus in January or August, and you think, oh, this is never going to end. This is such a long semester, and I warn you, I tell you, listen, take advantage of every opportunity, because before you know it, it's going to be May. And here we are, and your head is likely spinning, saying, where did the weeks go? In January, I spoke from 1 Chronicles 12:32. These men of Issachar understood the times, and they knew what Israel should do. A prior academic year, I spoke from Psalm 90, verse 12. Teach us to number our days. Value your days. You could shake your head and think, I don't need you to tell me that, again. Make the most of your time, because by any measure, we don't have much of it. And by any measure, the now common statement, the days are long, but the years are short, is true. Do not be distracted. Do not be lulled by fleeting fears or fleeting amusements. Invest in purposes that are godly and eternal. And I want us then this morning to look at Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verses 1 to 15. There is an occasion for everything, a time for every activity under heaven, a time to give birth and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to avoid embracing, a time to search and a time to count as lost, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to be silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war time for peace. What does the worker gain from his struggles? I've seen the task that God has given people to keep them occupied. He's made everything appropriate in its time. He's also put eternity in their hearts, but man cannot discover the work God has done from beginning to end. I know that there's nothing better for them than to rejoice and enjoy the good life. It's also the gift of God whenever anyone eats, drinks, and enjoys all his efforts. I know that all God does will last forever. There's no adding to it or taking from it. God works so that people will be in awe of him. Whatever is, has already been. Whatever will be, already is. God repeats what has passed. If I had a title for this, it'd be a long one. It'd be The Mystery of Time and the Providence of God. Verses 1 to 8, really for me, verses 1 to 9, just common experiences of life. And it's very possible, as I read through that list, somebody in this room, somebody online would say, I actually passed through that this semester. Or it could be you've passed through multiple things that I read through and thought that these have been my experience this semester. This was my semester of time for weeping, time for laughing, time to rejoice, time to share, time to hold on. And then verses 9 to 15, there's some practical implications. And I know there are different perspectives on Ecclesiastes, and as I pressed into different commentaries in preparation for this, I was led to the conclusion that there are, in fact, a lot of different opinions on the book of Ecclesiastes. But I don't think this is pessimistic, this passage. I think it's realistic, and it's optimistic, in fact. It's an antidote to despair and pessimism. It's a solution to the problem of life's vanity. So let me just start, verses 1 to 9, addressing the mystery of time. Or you could maybe say human mortality. The older I get, and if the Lord should tarry and he continues to give me breath, the next time I'll be with you in chapel, I'll be 60 years old. I was only 18 yesterday. Seriously, like driving through Vancouver as a 22-year-old. And I'll have crossed the threshold into another decade of life. I sadly won't be with you next week. I'll be at my son's wedding. But by fall, should the Lord tarry and give me breath, I plan to be here. And as a 60-year-old man thinking, man, human mortality is a thing. Verse 1 is just an observation on human life in the human world. Nothing in this world is ours forever. Do you need to be reminded of that? Those little trinkets that we hold on to. Those things we fight so hard to attain. Like nothing in this life is ours forever. And I do mean nothing. There are 14 couplets in verses 2 to 8. And they represent to me the full range of human life, human experiences. You could easily push back. I don't think he's trying to be exhaustive. You could push back. Oh, he doesn't mention. I get it. But I think he's trying to cover the waterfront of our human existence. And these are the big sweeps, the warps and the woofs of our life that we'll pass through if we should tarry long on this earth. There's virtue and there's value in seeing the purposefulness of our life. But it comes from God's providential oversight of its occasions and of its seasons. And now I'm getting ahead of myself. But I need to say that up front, because otherwise it just seems frail and vain and wearisome. Each aspect of your life has time. Every one of these seasons of your life has a time marked out. My fear as students is that you are in such a hurry to get from one year to the next and one semester to the next that you miss the time, the season that you're in, and you look back on it and wonder what you missed. If we could learn to just live in the season where we've been placed, deriving full benefit for spiritual growth, I think we would do well. One of the commentators, Jim Stafford Wright, says the significance of this section is that man is responsible to discern the right times for the right actions. And when he does the right actions according to God's time, the result, in verse 11, where we get to, is beautiful. By the time we reach verse 8, I don't know about you, but by the time I reach verse 8, especially the older I get and the more I realize the water that's now under the bridge. In our family, the time for birth is long past. I mean, the next births, if God should choose, would be grandchildren. The time for birth is long past. We're in a season where we're mourning the deaths of parents. By the time you get to verse 8, maybe you just feel tired. Maybe you feel weary. Maybe you feel, if I could be honest, melancholy, just a little bit melancholic. One of our problems is we live at a time when we have such chronological arrogance. We think we are the most enlightened people that have ever walked God's earth. We have the corner on human wisdom and human knowledge and human ingenuity. Like we are the apex. And it means that we're blind to the centuries that have preceded us, where I think people had a better grasp on their mortality than we do. They were more willing to actually acknowledge their mortality. I spent a tremendous amount of my undergraduate work in English literature, especially from the 16th to 19th century. And for 1 year at University of British Columbia, one of my courses, full year, was Shakespeare. And it wouldn't surprise you, that being the case. I was caused to memorize and actually perform, loosely speaking. I could say I'm a Shakespearean actor. But this great statement that has been lifted from Macbeth, one of his great plays, Act 5, Scene 5, lines 19 through 28, 29. Listen to what was said by Shakespeare centuries ago. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to day till the last syllable of recorded time. And all our yesterdays have lighted fools the way to dusty death. Out, out, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. It's a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. There's a weariness in his tone, isn't there? What's our temptation? Our temptation is to expend energies, dedicate resources, all in a vain attempt to establish some lasting memorial, some lasting tribute to our name. And it doesn't work. It's never worked. Denominations spend extraordinary energy under the flawed belief that eternity will remember the name. No, just one name. Just one name, Jesus. Institutions like this beautiful school best not expend tremendous amounts of energy under the flawed assumption that our name will last forever. It will not. We live in seasons of time, and we want to fulfill our purpose and our assignment in this day, but not build something for our name. And I'm not going to get ahead of myself, because there's a solution to this coming. We strive to ensure that we're remembered, but we won't be. We have this desire in us to matter. I do think it's God-breathed. I think there's something in the way he breathed his life into us that we want our lives to have significance. But if it's only navigating the seasons of life, sooner or later, we come to the conclusion that it doesn't. Listen, you could be, how many business people have I sat with who have climbed a ladder, they've built a company, they have accomplished their dream only to reach a place of dissatisfaction. And just in case you think that's reserved for the industrial world or the business world, how many pastors have I sat with? How many ministry leaders who have built a church? They might be brazen enough to say they built their church and find themselves strangely empty. They're struggling to get the will and the energy to get up and preach one more sermon because their church is large, their ministry is large, their budgets are large, the people that they've impacted are many, and yet somehow inside is this gnawing sense of it's not enough. It doesn't matter. And if you don't feel that way in your teens and your 20s, I promise you the day's coming in your 40s and 50s when you will. And I think the preacher, capital P, of Ecclesiastes is reflecting well on our common experience of life. We go through one, we go through another, and eventually we reach the conclusion that there's got to be more than this. There is a piece when I was in university that I was caused to memorize. It haunts me to today. Written by not one of my favorite poets, to be honest, but the piece itself captures this wrong assumption that I am all that and that I can build something to memorialize my efforts and my accomplishments, and everybody for all time will look at it and wonder. And it was written by Percy Bysshe Shelley. The name of the poem is Ozymandias. And I've asked Elaine Phillips to come read that for you.
I met a traveller from an antique land who said, "Two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them, on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well read those passions which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them, and the heart that fed. And on the pedestal these words remain, 'My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair.' Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away."
Isn't that haunting? Came across the remains of a colossal statue. "My name is Ozymandias. Look upon my works and tremble," sitting amongst sand dunes and nothing. Isn't that amazing? In the final analysis, the only agenda that will matter is God's agenda. Only to the extent that my life is embedded in this agenda, his agenda, aligned with his agenda, will anything I do have any lasting or enduring value. In the common seasons of life, I must see the providence of God. I must see the arc of his activity. Can I bring this a little closer to home for us? You could have heard that poem by one of the famous romantic poets and thought, that's just not my cup of tea. Okay. I've traveled enough throughout North America, time and time and time again, stood in the pulpit of a church that used to boast 3,000-4,000 people, 1,200 people. And now there are 30 people gathered. Look on my works, ye mighty, and tremble. And all around is sand and nothing else remains. Who are we building for? And so when I get to this place and I say, nothing matters unless we're on God's agenda, there may be something in your heart that actually feels disappointed. Are you serious? You mean nothing I do matters for me? It's a betrayal of my real intent, isn't it? As a follower of Christ, I'd say, no, I'm telling you God's honest truth. Nothing you do will matter apart from him. In him, it all matters. All the seasons of your life can be caught up, bound to him, and it will make a tremendous difference in the great kingdom that is being built by our Christ. We are warranted to have both humility and confidence as we head into the final verses of this text. I'm reminded of a recent quote that I heard from Alistair Begg. I wish I had that Scottish brogue because it just makes it sound even more profound. But listen to him. Now, when you and I begin to depend upon divine providence, it will allow us to endure our afflictions without undue complaint, and it will allow us to experience our encouragements without undue pride. Okay, I got to read that again. When you and I begin to depend upon divine providence, it will allow us to endure our afflictions without undue complaint, and it will allow us to experience our encouragements without undue pride. That's a great way to transition from these couplets to what comes next. Around us, through us, beyond us, God is working. Reminds me of Acts chapter 17, verse 28. In him we live and move and exist, or have our being. There's a mystery. There's a mystery to time. How fleeting it is. How enamored by it we are. But it matters only against the backdrop of God's providence. And I do believe verses 9 to 15 drive home this assurance. Verse 9, we are offered a life that is joyful and fulfilling, but not self-sufficient. Did you hear that? We are offered a life that is joyful and fulfilling, but not self-sufficient. Verse 11 in the Amplified Bible says this: He's made everything beautiful and appropriate in its time. He's also planted eternity, a sense of divine purpose in the human heart, a mysterious longing which nothing under the sun can satisfy except God. Yet man cannot find out, comprehend, grasp what God has done. That is his overall plan from the beginning to the end. There's something in us, isn't there, that wants to know that my life is about something more than just my life. Isn't there something in you? I mean, you came to this school full of spit and fire. I don't care if it was the college or the seminary. You enrolled in your early classes. You were full of dream and passion. And somewhere along the way, somewhere in your degree plan, you reach the conclusion it's got to be about more than these classes and these tests and these papers. And here's the beautiful thing. It is. It is. It's about what God is doing in, through, and around your life. It's about what he wants to accomplish for his own glory, but also for your good and for the good of his people. Michael Eaton, another commentator, says the eternity of God's dealings with mankind correspond to something inside us. We have a capacity for eternal things. We're concerned about the future. We want to understand, quote, from the beginning to the end, and have a sense of something which transcends our immediate situation. Nothing in the finite human realm can satisfy the human heart intellectually or practically. If you haven't discovered it yet, I'm just telling you now, getting an A in my ethics class, getting an A in the spiritual leadership class will not satisfy you. It will make me happy. It won't satisfy you. What God accomplishes in your life while you're journeying with him through Christian ethics or spiritual leadership or Hebrew, Old Testament, Greek, New Testament, theology, that's the stuff that shapes character, clarifies calling, hones competency. Now we're pretty close, I think, to Augustine's famous maxim in Confessions 1:1. You have made us for yourself, and our hearts are restless until they can find peace in you. Verse 12, enjoy life. Enjoy life. The verse here, when it says enjoy the good life, we kind of perverted that, I think, in the 21st century. When I hear somebody tell me, live the good life, I'm assuming what they mean is, bonfire with s'mores and a beer. And that's the commercial. That's not what he's talking about. He's talking about a life of substance. He's talking about a life that actually matters. That God can build his kingdom through his activity in your life. Enjoy life. Actively pursue and practice a good and happy life. Enjoy your children. They'll be gone before you know it. Trust me. Enjoy them when they're young. Invest in them. Enjoy your marriage. Enjoy dating. Enjoy your church home. Enjoy these seasons of life. Drink it up. Verse 13, that your daily toil is enjoyable under the sovereign hand of God. Enjoy the work he's given you. Go to bed tired, good tired, godly tired, with a smile on your face, where you just kind of hear the echo from the future chamber of heaven saying, well done, good and faithful servant. You did what I asked you to do today. Enjoy your toil. It doesn't have to be meaningless. Verse 14, only God's work has the perfection and eternal worth for which we long. Let me pause here. One thing that elevates us above the animal world, one thing, I mean, not the only thing, but one thing, in addition to the God-given sense of eternity, is the desire to understand the whole. Now, our family right now has a dog that likely will go down in for me as my favorite pet that I've ever had. I love this dog. I'm not saying he's a well-behaved dog. He tries. But when I look at that Labradoodle, there is nothing that tells me he's thinking about tomorrow. He's not wondering what his grand design is in the Blackaby family. We exist as human, comfort for him. He's not wondering why he exists, is what I'm telling you. He's not wondering why he was born a Labradoodle. He's not wondering why he exists, where he exists, when he exists. He's just eating his food, licking his paws, and going to sleep. But not us. But not us. We wonder why I'm here. I want to suggest in Canada today, this is an epidemic. Coming out of COVID, for the last 6 years, I think Canadians on an increasingly urgent scale have been asking, why? Why? There's eternity in my heart and I have no answer. Why? And we have the answer. We know why. I think we desire to understand the whole. And I think it accounts for, I don't think it's an overstatement to say it accounts for all of our science, all of our philosophy, all of our human knowledge, all of our theology. We're trying to understand our place in the whole. If that's true, then secularism for us gives way to theism. Immediately crumbles. Pessimism gives way to optimism. There's no space for it. Human autonomy gives way to human faith. One more time, let me read to you Michael Eaton. When he's looking at verse 14, he says, the thought turns to the security of the believer's life. Earth is beset with futility, transitoriness, unreliability. Security must be found somewhere else, in God's grace and sovereignty over it. So 3 aspects of God's actions are highlighted. First, it's permanent. The preacher allows no possibility of failure in God. Second, it is effective and complete. None of his work has to be abandoned. Third, his actions are totally secure. No part or aspect can be endangered by any alien force. All this leads on the part of human beings to fear. Not a craven terror in the face of the monstrous or the unknown, but rather the opposite, reverence and awesome regard for God. Hope. As you get to the end of this semester, maybe that's the word I want you to leave with, hope. God alone keeps the cycle of nature and history going across millennia and in your life. Our hope is as immutable as the pessimist's fear or stress or despair. God himself becomes the source of our earthly movements. The hubbub of human activity matters because it's all caught up in him. It's guaranteed and secured because God watches over it. Every moment with providential concern. So you come to the end of an academic year. Maybe it's your first. For some of you, it's your last. Take hope. God has been about a great work in, through, and around your life. Sometimes the seasons that you've gone through have maybe actually caused a little bit of disorientation. Come back to the sovereignty of God. Anchor yourself in the glorious Christ. If you leave here thinking that we've trained you to plaster or plant a church or lead a Christian ministry, well, I pray that you have gained competency and skill while you've been here. But I pray to God what you leave here most of all is that life is changed. And you are more intimately acquainted with Christ and more passionate about sharing the gospel to a world that needs to know there's a reason for my existence. And that everything that it doesn't mean I have to enjoy every season. Because I'm going to tell you, I did not enjoy burying my father. But it now has meaning. It now has profound meaning for me. As I look at my life, traveling into the decades that I saw in those pictures that I was going through in preparation for my son's wedding, thinking, God, would you be to me like you were to my father? Could I know you like he knew you? Could you do through me what you did through him for your great glory, your great name's sake, and for the good of me and your people? That would be my prayer. For you as students, for us as faculty and staff, that in the mystery of time we would see the providence of God. And it would compel us to be serious with every minute we live. Let me pray with you. Father, thank you for another amazing academic year. College and seminary filled with so many beautiful memories, so many beautiful learning opportunities. Thank you for trusting this community with the seasons of our lives. And we've gone through this as sojourners together. But we freely acknowledge in faith it matters nothing apart from Christ and your providence worked out through our lives for your great name's sake. We believe you're doing something amazing in this green and pleasant land called Canada. Could you use the students, faculty, and staff of this school to stand determinedly for your name and your name alone, that our identity is in you, our passions are in you, our hope is in you, and everything we do is meaningful as you use it to bring others into your great kingdom. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.